Yeah, I'm delighted to have you back because that first conversation, I think we talked an hour or so, and I still feel like we were just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, happy to be here. Curious. Curious. It's fun. I've been doing a lot more podcasts lately, and it's just amazing how much it just takes different turns depending on the host and our kind of vibe together and all that. So it's a
Yeah, and
fun
whatever
experiment.
overlap or not there is with work and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
once I hit stop recording last time, and then we started to talk a little bit about a potential for another episode, and you were talking about erotic circuitry and
Yes.
and the full orgasm reflex.
Yeah.
And while I understand each one of those words individually,
Okay.
you know, I guess I don't know where you want to start in terms of diving into those concepts.
Sure. Well, to give a little context, I have been, let's say, like about 3 or 4 years ago, it started to be like much more obvious, like over and over again, both inside of myself and from the outer world, that I just kept getting these nudges and reminders and invitations to step more into this sort of role. And even though it had been in my mind at least a little bit for a long time that this was kind of in the cards, um, yeah, it kind of gradually just started to be like, you're going to do this now. And I had a incredibly talented collaborator and teaching partner named Michael Rostowski, who is he has a knack for helping people articulate their like bodies of work or their thoughts or their frameworks. He's really good at like naming things and being able to like listen to somebody and be like, oh, it sounds like you're saying this. Here's what we could call it.
Yeah.
Right. So after us just spending a lot of time just kind of taking the teachings that I wanted to share in a group that we were facilitating together into our labbing of creating the student handbook and the student materials, that I was just kind of like, okay, so this is what I would like to share. And then Michael's like, okay, well, let's structure this and name it stuff, basically. And I have it was super helpful. That whole process
Yeah.
really helped this nebulous goo of my creative inspirations and the things that I know and have been exploring for at this point about 20 years into something that is like a corpus, like a body of work that's pretty at this point pretty well structured and kind of
Hmm.
hangs within a framework that's very lean and easy to navigate, but it surely always wasn't like that. And one of the arms, let's say, of the teachings was the original erotic circuitry,
Okay.
which is basically some things like breath work, simple movements, what we could call somatics, so embodiment practices that are focused on the experience rather than like the way that it looks or anything like that, to support us to restore or to return to the way that our bodies are actually designed to function rather than the way that they end up because of patterns of use, like, even things like postural patterning or breathing, like the habits of breathing can pattern our diaphragm, for example, like the tone and tissue and the way that our kind of bodies, just like all things in nature, they adapt to the way that they're used.
Hmm.
So, um, what I have seen in my own body and in working with people is that our bodies can get kind of like stuck in patterns of use that are very, very limiting. Um, when we start to work with more, let's say, I kind of hate using this word because it's so vague, but like energetic stuff in sex, that it's like a mirror of like, oh, okay. There's places where energy is not flowing because
Hmm.
clearly when we kind of turn up the volume or step on the gas of having a lot of sexual charge in the body, it either flows or it doesn't, or we feel stuckness. And this this also goes into a much deeper conversation about emotions and feeling our feelings through to completion and how it relates to trauma and all kinds of stuff too really plays into this. And that's a whole, rabbit hole that we can go down. But the thing that might be fun to talk about with a little bit of structure and completeness, let's say, is what people can do to support their bodies to open, to be able to hold more sexual charge and to have the capacity for flow.
Could
And
could you give an example or description of like what it's like to run into one of these blocks where it's not
sure,
flowing?
absolutely. So I think what happens a lot of times when people get really horny is they just feel like they need to ejaculate. This is
Hmm.
one example.
Okay.
Right. Or I've also heard women feel like um, I'm just organizing my thoughts around which direction I want to go with that and share either a personal experience or a teaching experience. I've heard for women, many women, and I've also had personal experiences with this where there's like a level of horniness that happens and then they feel like they need to rub their clit and
Hmm.
climax. And I think part of that feeling of agitation or frenetic energy or whatever, it can relate to, addiction and this sort of kind of psychological and um, I don't want to minimize it and say that it's purely psychological, but a compulsion essentially to go into a particular kind of behavior can be related there too. But I think often this kind of like itchy, like feeling has a lot to do with the fact that the body is not able to flow, able to
Mm.
circulate energy. And I think this is also part of why people get so genital focused in sex rather than um, it's not even about considering, but realizing and experiencing that their entire body is erotic and that orgasm and pleasure can arise from or flow through literally the entire body.
So
One example,
if it's getting kind of stuck in the genitals, that's where the drive for this release then comes from, right? Because it's not
it,
flowing.
yes, it can be that for sure. And um, I'll make the conversation more complicated before we maybe kind of cover the territory where I'll
Okay.
say that. And I don't remember if we talked about this on the last interview or another one that kind of happened right around that time, where my understanding that the science arrives at the same conclusion as like the body explorer people, that there are three physiologically distinct kinds of breathing. And one of them is aerobic, like if you're playing a sport or whatever, your body goes into a different way of breathing. And the two other that are much more related to sex is fear-based breathing,
Mm.
which is like when you're in a fight or flight response, your breathing changes and your neurology changes so that you can live to see another day, right? So that your body shifts into a state where you are more capable of responding to threat by either defending yourself or the people that you love and care for, or get the fuck out of there,
Right.
right? So, and this is obviously very intelligent and kind of baked into mammalian biology and animal biology that our body can shift into a state when we need to um, respond to danger.
Right.
And the other kind of breathing is like rest and digest, social engagement, relaxation kind of breathing. And what ends up happening is people develop the habit of doing fear-based breathing even when they are completely safe and there is no tiger.
Mm. And is this just like it probably goes beyond just sort of the chronic stress we live with?
Well, it's like a vicious cycle because like for example, if you ask a lot of people to take a deep breath, usually I've observed this time and time again. Their bellies are contracted and they breathe into their chest. So it actually can create more anxiety. Like it's almost
Mm.
like it does the opposite of what it is intended. And a lot of well-intending coaches and people that are trying to help others, like, okay, just take a deep breath. And someone's like, and they're like doing a fear-based breathing that's just making them feel worse, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this is tricky, and because even when you say breathe into your belly, if somebody is not able to relax and their diaphragm is not functioning properly, they cannot actually do that. It's not
Mm.
possible because of almost like a physical mechanical thing. So to release the diaphragm and the abdominal muscles and to really learn to breathe all the way down kind of into the root and into the belly is really important just to have a better relationship with our emotions and to regulate stress and to just have better mental health. Like
Hmm.
really learning about breathing and practicing breathing correctly and understanding the problems that a lot of people have with correct breathing is critical. Like for me, it's like no wonder people have such a hard time. They're in a body that their whole life is kind of like an uphill struggle because of things that. So, back to this piece around cranial nerves, which we talked about last time. So, the vagus nerve, this gets a lot of press nowadays in some
Right.
circles where people talk about polyvagal theory and Stephen Porges's work and all that kind of pioneering research about this nerve. I think it's CN10, cranial nerve 10. I mean, it doesn't matter. That won't mean
Right.
anything
Right.
to anybody for the most part. But basically, there's a bunch of nerves. And is your podcast video or are we just on
Well,
audio?
I do put it on YouTube for anybody that is listening and would like to see what you're doing. Yeah.
Okay,
That's
got it. So basically, like if you, even right now, if you kind of put your fingers just at the base of the back of your skull, you'll feel that just outside of these two kind of lines of tissue that are parallel to your spine, there's kind of like a soft spot. And right around that area, there's a bunch of nerves that leave your cranium, like your skull, and they go
right.
to different places in your body. There's some that kind of go around the front into your face, and then there are ones that go down the whole front of your body and like innervate your vital organs and into your genitals and everything. And the cranial nerve, 10, so the vagus nerve, is like this meandering many branches of nerves that go through the entire front of the body. And the research shows that this is really related to social engagement, that the
Hmm.
tone of the vagus nerve being able to modulate correctly is critical to social engagement. So this emphasis on psychology that is like such a big thing in the world of people trying to figure out how to be okay and have good lives is so often just completely in the wrong direction because the issue is physiological. That if people are
Right.
not breathing correctly and their vagus nerve is not functioning properly, all of their issues that can be like severe mental health issues, even things as severe as autism, is often it's been shown that it is related to dysfunctional cranial nerves. It's
Hmm.
not actually like, oh, I have a mental illness. It's like, no, the fucking nerves that are the basis of how the mechanics of your physiology work are dysfunctioning.
Yeah.
So there's some body workers that like have found that they can treat people with severe autism by just getting their cranial nerves working properly, and all of these symptoms of like not being able to like track social cues and even severe nonverbal autism has been significantly influenced by getting the cranial nerve functioning properly,
Hmm.
which is wild. And I share this in this kind of context because it kind of proves the point that if we don't understand how our bodies work, we're just kind of playing around in the dark and we don't like there's no way to take responsibility for your life if you don't understand how consciousness works. And given the reality that we are in a body, consciousness works because of your nervous system. And
Yeah.
if you don't know how your nervous system works, you're fucked. Because it's like, fear is such a bitch. It's like fear, it's like when you're in a state of fear, your capacity to function is limited so much. Or
Right.
we can even just go more neutral and say that it changes, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
you change, all of us change our behavioral patterns, our thought processes, our ability to like listen to others. It's like when I'm super triggered, I'm very reactive and I'm not a very good
Right.
listener. It's just like that's just human. That's
And
how it
we're
is.
trying to think or talk our way out of these issues, right? Instead of get into the body. I mean,
Yeah.
in the last conversation, we were talking about the difference between cognition and this sort of ancient embedded body
Yes,
wisdom
that's
that we
right.
have, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And it's not that like cognition is useful, like obviously
Yeah.
it's very useful. But again, like if you don't understand the embodied part of life, the so it can be interesting to frame it like this, where like let's say all is fair game in the universe, right? Like I'm not trying to be dogmatic or like attribute my values or views as much as I just seek to lay out the reality of the situation as clearly as I understand it and can articulate it so that people can take more responsibility for their lives and create what they want and be a choice, like that for me is an aspiration that I have as someone who's in a have an opportunity to talk to people about stuff. So,
Right.
you know, sometimes I do want to take a stand and be like, yo, this is important. This is what I believe, and here's why. But other times it's just like, this is a situation you should probably consider that,
Right.
like,
Right.
if you don't know how to breathe well, the reality of you having the kind of sex you want and the kind of orgasms you want it's not realistic.
Hmm.
It's not realistic for you to expect that you would have the best sex that you can if you don't know how to breathe properly. So like
Interesting.
just as one example of what we're talking about, and the same thing is like if you don't have some basic understanding of emotional intelligence and particularly fear, you will probably just feel like you're just getting yanked around by these invisible forces all the time and don't really know why you're struggling so
Hmm.
much. And, even I talked to somebody not too long ago who was completing his PhD at NYU in psychology, and they didn't talk about this at all,
Right.
literally at all. And he's
Right.
like in the upper echelon of higher education,
Yeah.
and they did not even raise the notion of psychology being influenced by embodiment. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't even a part of the thing. And to me, that just seems so unbelievably obvious.
Right. Right.
And it's not to say that like we don't want to maybe develop a more nuanced relationship with our mind or whatever, of course, but it's just again, it's when I see what happens in people's aging process, in the quality of their relationships, in the quality of their relationships with their children, the kind of sex they're having, what it feels like to be in their presence, it is a pretty obvious difference to
Mm.
me that when people are cultivating body intelligence and body-based practices, that they feel better to be around and they seem like they're having a better time in their own skin and their relationships are more meaningful and intimate.
Mm.
And that to me is, I'm interested in that.
Pretty compelling. Right.
It's pretty compelling, right? It
Yeah.
seems like, oh, I
Yeah.
want that, right? Where it's like you could
Yeah.
look at, if we, I don't know your audience so much, but like, if we look at different spiritual paths, there's more kind of like top down, mental, masculine approaches. And usually those people kind of, they don't have great sex and they can almost like be in their tower,
Uh,
and
okay.
it's, and it's, I've been meditating my whole adult life basically. And I probably will with increasing portion of my time for, like meditation is profound. I love,
Right.
just as a little caveat, meditation is amazing. And, you know, yeah,
So,
I was just kind of looking for like a plug for meditation there, but nothing came to mind. Yeah, I love this. Yeah, whatever. We don't need to go in that direction. I think it's too
okay.
much of a tangent, but go ahead. What were you going to say?
So I'm trying to imagine, let's say, average listener out there where maybe this is kind of a new concept or new thought.
Hmm.
What's showing up in their life besides maybe they get horny and want to just orgasm? Like, what
Yeah.
else might they be noticing in their life that they might go, oh, yeah, this is me. I'd have a reason to kind of consider whether
Hmm.
my body is doing this.
Hmm. There's so many directions that we could go here, Jessa. I would say one interesting direction that we could go is talking about emotional intelligence.
Okay.
And even this term, I think, is tossed around in a way that might be uh, kind of indicating something that I don't mean or referencing something that I don't mean. Um, this phrase, feel your feelings, is like super trite. And then a
Yeah.
lot of people who, um, I would say a lot of people develop the conclusion that their emotions are kind of a nuisance and that human emotions are just some like vestige of our primal past and that we would be better off without them, basically.
Mm,
It seems like a lot of people are like, you know, being logical or even like, this kind of misunderstanding of stoicism of just like, oh, we don't, emotions are just like, we don't need that. Like
yeah.
we
Yeah.
should aspire to be like logical or whatever. And that's how we should operate, right? And there's a whole nother view on what emotions are, that they're actually a part of our instincts. And when we learn how to work with them, they um, enhance the quality of life, and they're a source of deep wisdom and intuition that is reliable in ways that we cannot even begin to understand until we live through them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of why this is not the way that people experience their emotions is because kind of they don't see the difference between a feeling and a behavior. So they attribute anger with like toxic and dysfunctional and abusive behavior,
Mm.
not a pattern of energy moving in or on their body that's an expression of life force and body intelligence. So this is huge, right? Like that
Okay.
people feel like they're like, oh, I feel sad. And it's just like crushing in this sort of like deep despair that they feel existentially, or it, you know, touches on trauma or unprocessed grief or whatever. And this goes into a deeper conversation about how our bodies, when we don't experience safety and we don't experience enough of embodied resource, we tend to kind of set aside processing our emotional reality, which totally makes sense. You know, like there's a real reason for that. Like if you're out on the battlefield or something like that, or you need to like mobilize your tribe because you're in danger, you
Right.
can't be like, oh, I'm sad right now, I need to feel my feelings. It's like, no, we're gonna fucking die. We need to
Right.
go. Like,
Right. Right.
so it makes sense that we have this adaptation to be like, okay, that's not for now. We can grieve the loss of my brother later because we need to get to safety, people. Like that's makes so much sense. And
Well,
or
it does,
even
but you also just said before, so many of us are living in a constant state like that. So when do we ever
exactly.
connect with our emotions?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's like we don't really get back to the state of like, okay, now I can really be with the kind of unfurling process that my body needs to go through for me to kind of be more present with what it's really like to be me. So this kind of suppression creates so much dis-ease and dysfunction in the body. And I have a theory that seems to be pretty well confirmed by a lot of people way smarter than I am, that when we do not feel our feelings, when we do not allow our body to do what body does, it creates illness.
Mm.
That there's a tremendous amount of dysfunction, full on dysfunction in our physical bodies that is directly related to the way that we experience or do not experience emotion.
Mm.
And, you know, the traditional Chinese medical system, which is probably like at least 5,000 years old, they correlate different emotions with the vital organs and the, you know, the energy meridians and all this kind of stuff. And
Right. Right.
there's so many other analogs and parallels to that in like ancient traditions around the world related to that. That's just the way that the body is, right? And we somehow got the idea that we need to kind of suppress our feelings and they're just annoying or whatever. You know, I'm kind of
Yeah.
being overly simplistic and cheeky with that last statement there, but you know, I think that like if somebody were to really begin to investigate what we're talking about, it can take education first of all, because there's reason why we haven't felt our feelings because we didn't have the support that we needed to. And even that idea might be triggering for people or might rub people the wrong way, right? Like, especially a lot of men where they're like, I don't need that. Like, I'm not a girl or a child. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, but what I have seen is that when people are in a situation where they have tribe and we are pack animals, like literally, there's no way around that. When people are in an environment where there is actually like adults with capacity to be with one another, often people feel very tender. You know,
Mm.
they feel connected to pain. They feel connected to like something in their past that they haven't dealt with yet, or they feel, or sometimes the opposite can be true, and people go into projecting on others who might have more liberty with the different ranges of themselves. And that's a part of the process too. There's intelligence in that if you know how to work with it,
Mm.
right? So I'm just kind of speaking around there. There's so many different ways that we could look at this, but what I have seen in my own journey is the process of kind of feeling feelings through to completion is almost akin to like if you imagine that you have like channels or uh, like energy can flow through your body or not. And if we are not willing to feel our feelings, we are also not willing to feel our good feelings.
Yeah, I was going to say this isn't just about the negative ones,
It
right?
isn't for sure, but there's a consequence where people are like, you can't just choose to not feel sadness or anger. But there's even an element here that I think is worth clarifying, that I would not even say that sadness or anger are bad feelings. The suppression and resistance of feeling those feelings is I think where people experience suffering.
Yeah,
That what I have experienced in my own body and what I've learned from my teachers and mentors is that when we are able to keep an open system, these it's just life moving through you. It actually feels beautiful. It feels like I'm alive. It's like the wind in your sails,
right.
even if it's like, God, fuck. It's like there's something in we could say that like the intelligence of anger is indicating that something, that a boundary is being encroached on, or
Right,
something needs to be taken care of, right? And I bet a lot of people can relate to that. That like when somebody's doing something that's not cool, it's like, stop. Like there's this
right.
energy of like there's an impulse in me to assert,
Yeah.
right? And I think part of where we get all fucked up is we try to be nice, and then we freak out because it's like, oh, I'll just be a nice guy, and like even though I'm kind of pissed off and I don't want you to do that, I'll be like, oh, it's fine, until
Until it
I just
isn't.
completely
Yeah,
lose my shit. And there's so many, we could talk about the like horrific incidences where like a lovely housewife stabs her husband in the kidneys in the kitchen one day, right?
right,
Like
right.
as an example of somebody who maybe has suppressed their full feeling and expression, and then it comes out sideways.
Yeah,
Like it's almost like we think that we're more powerful than our bodies, but we either get sick or act fucking crazy when we
right,
don't
right.
allow ourselves to have an integrated relationship with ourselves, where it's like this is a part of you, right? And one of the places that I think a lot of men misunderstand the value of stoicism is it's not about not feeling your feelings. It's about being responsible with your behavior
Yeah.
and having a spacious relationship with what is arising in you, instead of being so in the ocean of stuff that comes up. Because this is actually how the child is.
Mm.
This is an immature phase of development, and because we didn't actually kind of stack the developmental process in a nurturing environment, being supported by adults who had capacity and had this integrated in them themselves, that we get so jacked up, and then we develop with all of these compensations and patterns, and like we're living inside of a straitjacket of our own embodiment. Right. So the sense of like, how do we not do that? A big part of it is we feel our feelings. And I think even that sentence sounds like a lot of men hear that and they're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But again, it's like if you want to have beautiful relationships and you want to have amazing sex and you want to feel good all the time, there's no way around. You need to deal with the backlog of unprocessed shit that is living in your body,
Mm.
and you need to learn how to feel your feelings and just let life move through you, right? And it's
Is
like, go
is
ahead.
this the same circuitry for emotions moving through you and erotic sexual energy? Like, is it all the same?
Close.
Okay.
It's close. Yeah. So like, I really like this frame that emotions are based the same way that there are primary colors and all the other colors are basically just combinations of these primary ones, that we could say that the same thing is true with emotions, right? So
Okay.
the I don't, I have a funny relationship with one of them that I'll mention that I'm not totally sure might be a sixth, but I'll get to that in a second. Some people say that it fits under one of the five, but in my own, let's say, investigation, I'm like, that has a flavor that I'm not sure how it fits in the primary emotions theory. But we have anger, sadness, fear, joy, and sexual feelings.
Okay.
That's it. Those are the five primary emotions, and everything else that you might experience is essentially just a combination of that, right?
Can I ask a totally diversionary question here?
Please. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because one of the things in the way I talk about this and think about this is that anger is a secondary emotion, that it's protective over sadness or hurt or fear. So
It
that, and so
it often is.
maybe it's a different use of the word primary and secondary, but I'm curious about your thoughts about that.
Yeah, so from what I've seen in exploring things with a lot of people and in myself, it's almost like there's a layer on top of what the primary thing is, right? And I think that anger is often a cover for fear or sadness.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
super common.
Yeah.
That someone's like, God, I'm so pissed. But it's like, I'm actually afraid that you don't love me and that feels too vulnerable. So I'd
Right.
rather just
Right.
be pissed. It's
Right.
like we have it's like there are adaptations and it's kind of brilliant. Like it's miraculous that we develop all of these ways of surviving in a situation that's super unhospitable for us being who we really are.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I find to be so compelling about sex is if you were to ask people, like, hey, do you want to like go into this deep work and kind of like deal with all of this like backlog of unprocessed stuff from your childhood, that people are just like, what the
Yeah.
fuck are you like, I got shit to do. Like,
Right. Why would I dig
what?
up all that shit? Yeah.
Yeah, or just like, no,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna keep stuffing it down until I like see a puppy and my heart breaks or something like that.
Right.
Or,
Right.
I'm making a joke, but like I think I heard that from a comedian or something. But anyways, um, yeah. So I think that this is what it's so interesting because when people are like, "Yeah, I really care about sex," like I cannot get away from the fact that I want to have great sex.
Yeah.
Then it's like, okay, well, put your boots on.
Right. Right.
Because it's not even me being like, let me like bait and switch some sort of like deep personal development thing with sex. It's like, I don't know how else to help you. Like, if you
Right.
actually
Right.
want the kind of sex that you feel is truly fulfilling and meaningful for both you and whoever you're with, I don't think there's any way around this. I think that
Right.
we really need to understand how to open the body and how to be in an experience of allowing ourselves to experience what it's like to be who we really are. And there's so much, again, it's like we learn so early on not to trust our bodies.
Right.
We learn so early on, right? Like, oh, don't be sad. Don't be sad. Like, don't cry. There's
Yeah.
nothing to be afraid of, like all of this stuff. And it's like often from very well-intending parents who like
Right.
that's the way
Right.
that they were raised and that's the way that they relate to their own emotions.
Yeah.
Most of the time. That's not always the case, but most of the time that's what's going on. That there we're just being kind of trained into the culture that is here. It's like
Yeah.
we just showed up at the party and someone's like, "Hey, here's the game we're playing." And we're like, "Oh, all right." It just
Right.
happens to like contort the aliveness of our body and really shut us down so that we're really sick and neurotic and our relationships are shitty,
Right.
which is like, okay, not a fun party to be at.
So if sexual feelings are one of the five primary
Hmm.
feelings alongside these other emotions, that you started to share that when I asked if it's the same circuitry or if we unlock all the stuff
Yeah.
in the same way, is it the same uh, way the energies are moving through us?
Yeah, I would say to keep it simple, yes, it's the same thing. And I want to be clear that sexual feelings are not necessarily sexual in nature in the way that they want to be expressed. Like oftentimes, sexual feelings in the body might just want to be expressed as creativity in a domain that has absolutely nothing to do with intercourse.
Okay.
And what's fascinating, some people probably trip out on hearing this. Something that I have seen again and again is that when people are not creatively expressed, they get kind of weirdly oriented towards sexual behavior and usually weird sexual behavior, like
Huh.
integrity issues in sexual behavior. Like they're compelled towards a way to utilize their creative energy that may not be aligned with their integrity. And when people
Interesting.
are, and a lot of it is like, it's scary to be creatively empowered for a lot of our personas and our like, the blocks that are in the way and the way that we kind of conceptualize who we are and what's safe and all that shit. So it's amazing to see how it's like if life would want to move through us into a particular form of expression or leadership or even communication with somebody or whatever, and we will not let ourselves go into that kind of expression or creativity, then it's almost like that life force or that juice will divert itself and find another way to be expressed. And I think this is not different than what I was just talking
Yeah.
about like if you have anger that is in your body or moving in your body and you don't express it or you don't honor that
Right.
it's there in the first place, then, and again, I want to clarify, most people associate expression of anger with what I would say is toxic rage. It's
Right.
not actually clean, embodied anger. It's it's like a weird thing that's happening because of the backlog of unprocessed charge in the body is coming out in this like really weird way. I'm saying
Mm.
the word weird a lot. I just noticed I'm like, I say weird 10 times in the past 10 minutes. Um,
But it comes out
yeah,
sideways, right? One way or yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. So, it's tricky. And I think that there's I have so much, let's say, compassion or understanding for the way that we develop these patterns. Like it makes so much sense that like when I was a
Oh,
kid, my
yeah.
dad was fucking scary when he was mad and I didn't want to be like that, so I had to figure out how to keep that monkey in a cage. Right? And it's like that's we received an imprint
Right.
and then we internalize that information and then we figure out how to deal with it and that makes sense like that's honorable that
Well, and it's
that's
generations and generations. I mean, that's like the culture. It just gets passed down. It's sort of
yeah
amazing anybody can do it differently, you
yeah
know?
Yeah. Yeah. And in a way that like we could even frame it as like these patterns are designed to get you to new resources. Like
Mm.
they're actually here to make sure that you don't die and they're here to make sure that your ancestors didn't die. And that worked. Like you made it. You're not
Right.
dead. And like you
Yeah.
grew up in a situation that was really not hospitable for human beings to thrive. In many ways, yes, absolutely, like with certain kind of primal needs, but certainly not with other needs that we have. And now we just have a backlog of stuff that we need to clean up, and it's actually not that hard. And
Yeah.
it's strangely enjoyable. It's not like, oh, I gotta go deep therapy now or whatever. It's like, no, the so we can take a tour into this one for a second and say that like I think that people's obsession with healing is the wrong direction. So that may upset some people, and I'll clarify
Okay.
what I mean by
Yeah, I was
that
going
is
to say,
like
so say a little bit more what you mean. Yeah.
when you are in relationship with what you want and what brings you joy and what feels like a way to live in integrity with who you really are, your pain will find you.
Mm.
There's no way around that. Like the stuff that is in the way or the things that need to kind of come up as you're moving in that direction will. And you don't need to like, go down to the crypt with a metal detector looking for your uncle or whatever. Like that's not what we need to do. It's like it can be helpful to do that, especially as you're getting started on the journey. But what I have found and what I continue to kind of notice I orient towards more and more is like in my coaching practice and in the groups that I run is that like when we really look at what makes us feel most alive and what is really our most um, like beautiful contribution and the things that we enjoy the most, we have to face what is in us that we haven't dealt with yet so that we can actually live into that. And that is so much more compelling than like, oh, do you want to go like take out the trash? It's like, no, do you want to have a great life?
Yeah. But you're saying this stuff will show up. You don't necessarily have to go,
Inevitably. I
you
think
don't
there's
have to go looking for it.
absolutely
It
no
will
way
appear.
around it. It
Yeah.
will surface. I think it is not possible for people to really be who we really are unless we're willing to experience the pain that we have not felt.
Yeah.
And
S-
it's also in a lot of cases it's the joy and there's also so much shame in there too, but anyways, I'm getting
Yeah.
carried away. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, so would this be the right time to start talking about what would be this breathing or like what's
Yeah,
somebody's first
perfect.
step towards
Perfect.
opening some of the circuitry for sex and for emotional
Yeah,
intelligence?
great. Great. Um, it's so much easier to relay this with video.
Yeah. Okay. So anybody
So I'll
just
try to
listening
be,
to the podcast,
I will, yeah, I'll try to be,
go to the YouTube.
yeah, I can say a lot of words to give more cues, like more movement cues.
Yeah.
But it'll just involve me talking fast, but I'll do it. It's fine.
Okay.
It's all
Right.
good. So
But you can demo too because I will have the
yeah,
video. Yeah.
yeah. So I learned this from Gay Hendricks. Do you know that name? Do you know
I
who
do
that
know
is?
that name.
He's
Is
amazing. Him and his wife
okay.
Katie, Catherine,
Yeah.
they Yeah, they're like the grandmommy and granddaddy of the kind of body-based therapy
Okay.
movement. They uh I think they're both in their 80s and they've published over 50 books.
Wow.
I think like 10 of them they co-authored. Many of them are New York Times bestsellers. They've been on Oprah, yada yada yada. Like they're really phenomenal
Yeah.
producers. They're they've worked with something like 45,000 people.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm like, how? That's insane.
It's a
So
long
anyways,
lifetime of commitment, you know?
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
and the reason why I say those figures is not just as a flex, but it's that like this stuff is it works. Like the
Right.
work works. You know, like
Right.
we know. You would have known 45,000 people later if you have a good idea or not.
Right.
So someone would have come back to be like, that didn't work.
Yeah.
Um, so there's this practice called the yes breath, which is at the center of the original erotic circuitry work. Like I would say that it is the foundational practice that I've found to have like the best bang for your buck and is a really great point of entry to see if you're curious about where does this lead? What else might I like to discover? And if people are experiencing issues with doing the yes breath, there are two things that could be going on, or three. One of them is really easy to fix. Um, when people's diaphragms are really tight, what ends up happening, um, just organizing my thoughts here.
Yeah.
The diaphragm is like a big umbrella shaped muscle that's nested at the bottom of your rib cage, kind of above your vital organs and like underneath where you imagine your lungs to be. And it connects to your spine and to your back ribs. And it's just like this big kind of umbrella thing.
Yeah.
And when you breathe out, it goes up. And when you breathe in, it contracts and goes down and creates like a negative vacuum in your chest cavity. And that's why you inhale, right? That there's this big muscle that it contracts and it creates a vacuum and you fill that up with air because there's a difference in pressure between the thing inside of your body and the air pressure outside of your body, right? So
Right.
that's why we breathe. And what ends up happening is, like any other muscle, that thing gets trained, and certain parts of that muscle get more developed than others if you've been doing the fear based breathing your whole life.
Mm.
So then when people are instructed to breathe in, there's several things that can go awry. One of them is that their belly is too tight and they can't really breathe all the way down there. And another is that when they breathe in, only parts of their diaphragm are working and only in certain ways. And that can even impact the lung tissue itself.
Wow.
So, the sense of like restorative, easy breath, people cannot even do that. Like a
Wow.
lot of people cannot even do that. And then all the kind of intercostal tissue in between the ribs and all this stuff, like it's like people are really locked up. So, they cannot even access this amazingly generous resource of easy, deep breaths that just feel so pleasurable and relaxing and beautiful. And, that sense of like when it's like the level of ease and pleasure that I feel in my body most of the time was like the equivalent of like being on MDMA when I was younger. Like it was
Mm.
just this sense of like it feels like drugs. And I
Wow.
think in a very real way in your brain, it is drugs. It
Right.
is endogenously created neurochemistry that relates to euphoria and positive feelings.
Right.
And it's not just like gratitude practice and all that kind of shit is great. So I'm not trying to say that like this is the panacea and if you breathe good, then you're gonna, be enlightened tomorrow or whatever.
But
Like
it does
that's
seem
not
like without that, you've got a limitation, right? But nothing
hugely,
else. Yeah. Yeah.
hugely. Like I think, learning how to breathe and what the body has to go through to learn how to breathe is something that will typically change people's lives. And, I think that we're in a situation where so many individuals are, let's say, prescribed psychiatric medication under the premise that what is occurring is in their psyche. Right.
Right.
So what I've and you know, I'm not a doctor. Do your own research and, you know, take responsibility for your life naturally and speak to a qualified professional here. If you're gonna
Right.
change your meds, don't be like, hey, I heard some guy on the internet talk about breathing and now I'm gonna like stop taking my antipsychotics. Like,
Right.
don't do that.
Right. Right. But this
Um,
idea that our physiology is foundational, like what's happening in
It's
our
so
body.
obvious. Yeah, like
Yeah.
how would that not be the case if all of the
Yeah.
muscles around your lungs are contracted and you can't breathe in and your neurochemistry is directly related to the quality of your respiration? There
Hmm.
would be no way that, it's pretty concrete that what I'm
Yes.
speaking around is valid. And
Right. Right.
there's a lot of evidence around this. Like James Nestor wrote an amazing book about breathing. There's a lot of rich history and different spiritual traditions and like the yogic science around the usefulness of breathing. So, again, this just being at the foundation of living, never mind exploring our sexual capacity, is learning how to breathe well.
Right.
And it's not like we're doing like breathing practices when we're fucking. Like, that's not what I'm talking about either. It's like if your body does not have the capacity for healthy breathing, your body does not have the capacity for healthy breathing.
Right.
And that's something that you can fix in a relatively short period of time. What I've seen in tracking this with people, I don't think I've seen anybody not be able to kind of have a totally different experience in their own body, even in some really severe cases with people that have had severe trauma and severe like mental illness issues. Um, yeah, and like being medically treated for mental illness have reported tremendous change
Mm.
from consistency of very simple practices. Just doing it for, 5 to 20 minutes a day for a couple weeks is like, oh my God, I feel
Wow.
totally different.
So how do you
So
do this? Yes, I'm like at the edge of my chair here.
yeah, here we go. Yeah,
I mean,
this is the foreplay. We're
right,
teasing each other.
exactly. You're
Here we
teasing
go.
me here.
So, all right, very simple. I'll kind of put on my yoga teacher hat for a
Okay.
second. um, do you want to do it with me?
Sure.
So let's sit on the edge of our chair so that the back of your chair isn't like in the way of you moving.
Right.
And folks at home who especially are not seeing a video, if you're seated, if you're driving, don't do this. But if you're
Good point.
seated, just move to the edge of your chair so that the back of your chair is not in the way. And let's start to just tip our pelvis forward and back a little bit. Pretty simple. And you'll notice
Okay.
that as you do that, your spine is flexing and extending. There's no way it's not. You
Right.
cannot you cannot tilt your pelvis without flexing and extending your spine. You
Yeah.
can't do that. And you'll also notice that your head and neck is inevitably moving at least a little bit. It's like your head will kind of come down a little bit and then it will come up a little bit.
Right.
So that is the basic movement of yes breath. And
Hmm.
where it comes together is we want to coordinate the respiration with the movement. So if we breathe in while we're going into extension, and what I'm doing for people who can't see the video, if you imagine that your pelvis is like a bowl of warm water and you're kind of pouring the warm water over your pubic bone, and that's the tilt forwards. And then you're pouring the bowl of warm water kind of like over your sacrum and like down your butt crack in the other direction.
Right. Right. Right.
So that's the movement.
Okay.
And when you're, pouring the warm water forwards over your pubic bone, your spine extends and you breathe in. And then you tip it the other way and breathe out.
And this is automatically connecting to the diaphragm in the ways we want
So
it
we'll
to
get
move.
into that.
Okay.
So what we want to focus on next is breathing, starting the inhale all the way down into your belly. You can almost imagine that you're, um, this is kind of funny, but you can even try it if you want to. We won't get into it so much now, but like if you were to like put your hand kind of underneath your pelvic floor and imagine that when you breathe in, you're trying to like breathe pressure against your own hand. So actually breathing all the way down, 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 down to your vaginal opening or anus. For guys, it's like behind your balls, kind of like this gooch area is the vernacular, like breathing all the way down there. And then also imagining that your your lower belly area is like a beach ball. And you're blowing up the beach ball in every direction, right? So it's like
Mm.
you're filling the front lower part of your belly and also kind of your side and back ribs around your kidney area. And then once you fill up your beach ball, then you're going to continue to breathe and fill your chest kind of underneath your rib cage. And there are so many ways that we can refine this, but there's almost this sense of expansion, like I'm breathing up.
Yeah.
And then the exhale. So again, I'll explain that all the way down. So if we imagine that the cycle that I'm describing starts at empty, so I just breathed out all the way. There's nothing going, like there's no minimal air in my lungs. I'm empty. And then I start breathing in all the way down kind of into my balls and low belly. And then I fill the front of my belly. And then I continue to breathe into my chest all the way kind of up into my throat and feel this expansion. And then the exhale is two parts. The first part is like imagine that you just pulled the plug out of an air mattress and it just goes, right?
Right.
And then the second part is, and you can kind of just seamlessly weave the two together. It's very easy. The second part is imagine that you're blowing out birthday candles.
Mm.
So again, when you're at the tippity top of the breath, let go like you're deflating an air mattress. When that kind of gets towards the end of what it would do on its own, then follow that trajectory like you're blowing out birthday candles all the way, all the way, all the way out. Don't strain, let it be easy. And then at the bottom, just wait. Let the
Mm.
inhalation begin as a reflex. Your body will, like,
You're right. You can't not
you
breathe
can't
in.
do
Yeah.
that. Like your brain, your like primal brain will make you breathe in. Your brain is tracking your blood oxygen level and it will make you breathe in. Like you
Huh.
cannot kill yourself from doing that. You know what I mean? Like
Right. Right.
even if you practiced it forever and you like made yourself pass out, when you passed out, your body would start breathing. Like
Right. It makes
you
me think
can't
of
do that.
kids that say they're going to hold their breath until they die or
No
something.
way.
Right. Right.
Yeah, it's like you can't even make yourself pass out that way. I mean, maybe if you're like if you're alive forever and you've
But that's
practiced it,
interesting to
but
wait for your reflex to kick in before you start instead of doing it all from your head or your thought process, right?
yeah, and part of the
Yeah.
logic behind that is that you're actually disrupting the pattern of respiration and you're
Mm-hmm.
giving your body an opportunity to trigger a more dynamic use of your diaphragm. So this is where we can start to kind of disrupt the patterning of the diaphragm muscle and the way that it's recruited by the brain. That's part of it, right? And then there's some other things that it's basically impossible for me to describe without video, how you can really reset the abdominal tension and reset the diaphragm. But it's really simple. It's like, in short, basically, there are ways of either holding your breath out all the way or holding your breath in all the way and just kind of pressing your belly out or pulling your belly in and just kind of pressurizing your chest or pressurizing your belly and really getting these bands of tension and connective tissue and muscle to stretch and then to contract all the way and then to stretch all the way. And then your body will just figure it out from there. Or you're just kind of resetting it and your body will sort it out.
Yeah. Well, some of this start to happen naturally if people, would you say 5 to 20 minutes a day, they start to
It
practice
will.
this. Some of this, it
It
seems like,
will.
will start to naturally happen too, right? We don't have to understand
It
the
absolutely
process.
will.
Yeah.
It absolutely will. So I'll do it a couple more times. And again, if you're checking out just the audio of this and you want to look at the video, I will just demonstrate it a little bit. And there's a lot of detail, and it's step by step. I would just say get the basics down, and if you
Yeah.
want more instruction, feel free to watch this video again or come find me. Maybe there's
Right.
other videos elsewhere on the internet that you can get. So, all right. So we start by just exhaling, nice, full, complete breath out. Wait for the inhale to happen on its own. Start breathing all the way down into your pelvic floor, filling up your belly. Continuing to fill up and let your chest expand, breathing kind of up underneath your collarbones. Two-part exhale. Cool. So you'll notice that there's this natural flow of like the pelvis is tipping forward, the spine
Yeah.
extends, I'm filling the belly, I'm filling up into my chest. There's all of this space and expansion. And it's like everywhere. You imagine the expansion is radial. It's like I'm
Yeah.
expanding into my back, I'm expanding down into my pelvic floor, I'm expanding up. And then the exhale is release and then kind of ring out.
Right.
Exhale, 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 exhale. And what's amazing is that the exhale, what I've seen in working with men specifically, I've explored this with women a little bit, but not to the extent that I feel confident in kind of arriving at a conclusion in my quote unquote research here. But what it seems like is there's so much tension and like frenetic energy that accumulates in men's genitals, and I think there's a good chance that this is affecting prostate health and testicular function and prostate function and even the length of your dick, which is wild. The connective tissue that goes through the penis is also connected all the way through the entire body.
Yeah.
So I've had many men share that when they do these practices and they learn, it's like if you imagine there's almost like a stone like kind of dead tissue that goes around the genitals that's just like that all the time. And then you start to mobilize it and wake it up and get it lubricated and alive more. It supports more blood flow, more energy, more nimbleness. And a lot of men have reported that their balls and their dick just like are more relaxed
Yeah.
and like hang out of their body more. And I spoke to a woman who she's Spanish, but she lives in the Netherlands, who um, she's done a lot of like pelvic care body work with men. And she said that maybe, I don't remember, like under 10 men that she's ever worked with ever out of like several thousand, she was not able to pull 1 to 4 centimeters of dick out of their pelvic floor,
Yeah.
which is
Crazy. Yeah.
completely insane. I don't remember
Yeah.
if we talked about this on the
We
last call,
did a
but
little bit. Yeah. It's like,
it's wild. It's so wild, right? And it's
yeah.
like you can't just like yank it out, right? Like
Right. Right.
it doesn't work. But like there's this sense of like when we look at this as a holistic system, this is an integrated holistic system. And when we start to really be in right relationship with like the body goes through these fluctuations and respiration is really at the heart of it, and so is cranial sacral rhythm.
Hmm.
That there, we talked about this on the last call too, I think a little bit. And one of the things that's amazing about the yes breath is that, so unlike your circulatory system, which has a pump called your heart, the cranial sacral fluid, which is kind of like the juice that is insulating your central nervous system, it's inside of the dura, which is like literally in your inside of your physical spine. It doesn't have a pump. The way that it circulates is the tilt of your cranium and pelvis.
Wow.
So doing the
Okay.
yes breath is supporting healthy function of your central nervous system. And
Yeah.
it's also supporting your fascial system. And the fascial web is basically like this massive network of connective tissue that goes through literally every part of your body.
Right.
It's like this big web that everything is encased in and connected to. That when we start to mobilize all of that, the body is a self-healing organism, like the way the body is self-healing, right? And part of the reason why we do not experience it like that is one, because we don't feel our feelings through to completion. And again, just to reiterate this, if people didn't catch me name it before, I would say that feelings or emotions are just a pattern of energetic activity in or on the body.
Mm.
It's not that complicated. It's a
Right.
part of the intelligence of the animal that
Right.
there's movement of energy in or on the body in different patterns that we call emotions. That's it. It's not
Yeah.
this like spooky thing. It's not like, it's not, do you know what I mean? Like, I think
Yeah.
that it's so empowering to demystify these abstract concepts that are in our languaging and in our vernacular, because I think it doesn't, it's not inspiring for people to take responsibility for it or take it seriously, because it doesn't even make sense to most people's worldview. It's like,
Right.
what is that? Like, I don't care about that. That has nothing to do with what matters to me at all. Like, why would I take time and attention away from the things that matter to feel my feelings, dude? Like, what are you even talking about? So I know that this sort of information, especially for people that are very intellectually focused, it is very helpful for them to hear a coherent model as to like, what is this and why is
Yeah.
it relevant and what is the
Right.
consequence of not doing this and what do I get if I take this seriously and I invest in learning about it and doing these practices.
Yeah.
So, and I've also seen this too, that like you might say that like, well, a lot of masculine men wouldn't be into this kind of stuff. I hear that a lot from women, or even in the sense of like, I- I've heard it discussed in the context of like, well, these guys who are like peak performers and CEOs and executives or whatever, like they wouldn't be into this kind of thing. And I'm like, if you give them a reason, those people are so open-minded and goal-oriented. It's unbelievable how much
Right.
work they're willing to put into something that they believe in. So
Right.
I've
Right.
seen this with so many men is that the reason why they are not interested in the things that their wives and girlfriends are interested in is because they do not understand why that is relevant to their worldview and values. So there's a fundamental incompatibility in like everybody's just trying to get their needs met, but it just gets lost in translation because we don't have shared reality. We
Right.
don't have a shared understanding. And I think this again goes back to how much we live from cognition, and the cognitive frameworks that we were given by our society don't really contextualize the human experience very well. So we're just lost. And it's manifesting as disease. Like we could
Right.
also look at systems that are not biological, like ecological and political systems and economic systems. Like we're not doing well in a lot of ways, right? And in
Right.
a lot of ways, we're doing fantastic. Like
Right.
there's less
Right.
violence than there ever has been in the human species, and like we tend to not think about that a lot, but it's definitely true, no
Okay.
question about it. So yeah, go ahead,
So
go
if
ahead.
somebody were to start doing this yes breath, would
Hmm.
some of the other stuff show up? The emotions, the stuff that needs to get processed, would all of it just start to unfold naturally for them? Or is this something that
Yeah,
people would need
it's
a
a
lot of
great
guidance or
question.
coaching around?
It's a great question. What I would say is that when we look at what is occurring, and I'll try to break this down in a way that is concrete, a lot of the information in, let's say, the backlog of unprocessed stuff in the body is quite old. That is to say, it is quite young.
Okay.
And for the integration of young information, like we could say developmental trauma or some intense thing that happened when you were really little that you don't even remember at all.
Right.
It's just
Right.
it's just in the body. And people might say like, well, I don't remember. Who cares? And it's like, well, because it's in your body, and your body is and I wish I could relay to people how real and consequential this is, and I can maybe share some things that I've observed in my own experience, but we get way too stacked with, I can't say 9 sentences at the same time. So, well, I'll continue with this thought. So, the information that we needed when we were really young was related to relationship with an adult nervous system, with an adult that had the capacity to be present with themselves and with us.
Hmm.
So a lot of this stuff that like if somebody starts to do these kinds of practices like what I'm describing, it may very well cause spontaneous arising of emotions. And if that does occur for somebody, I would suggest just trust the process,
Hmm.
follow your body's intelligence. Like just if you feel like moving or squirming around, or if your body starts shuddering and you feel grief moving or something, then just let it happen. It's like
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
not going to die. It's okay. Just let it happen. If you feel anger, this is where it starts to get complex, because I don't want to advise people in a way where I'm not actually able to like show up with a grounded model. If I'm inviting
Yeah.
people into new territory, I like to do so with a sense of understanding that this is viable and responsible, how I'm inviting it. So the S breath is very gentle, let's say.
Yeah.
Like if
Yeah.
there's a lot of breath work that's like really go go go, and this is not that. Like this is a
Right.
very
Right.
gentle practice, and you can bring a little zest to it and like breathe with some, I wouldn't say force, but like effort, like a clear sense of like I'm breathing to the edge of how much I can inhale, and then I'm breathing to the edge of how much I can exhale. And I'm really exploring the contours of how my breath can really fill and how my breath can really move out, right? Like that's good. And then you can also explore doing it with an incredible gentleness and subtlety as well. And they both have different effects and are
Right.
equally valuable as far as I'm concerned. I think when people are really kind of breaking the eggshell, let's say, it'd be helpful to have a little bit more power to it, but not always.
Okay.
Sometimes the gentleness is what we need. Um, so to loop this back in, what I have seen again and again is the presence of another person, somebody who loves you, is
Yeah.
critical in the stuff coming up.
Yeah.
And it's not like we, my one of my somebody who I've learned a tremendous amount from. His name is Christian Pankhurst. He says that like we don't need to like go down into the basement with a crowbar and try to like jack up our trauma or whatever. When like there's a knowing in the body that this can come up now. Like there's enough resource or there's enough capacity to deal with this now. And often that can come from like, okay, I'm not two, I'm a grown man or a grown
Right.
woman. I have an adult nervous system. I'm not going to die from feeling emotions. Like I'm not going to be overwhelmed by that in that same way. But what I've seen again and again is that being in an environment with other adults that are willing to be with one another in the
Right.
reality of what is occurring for each other is a part of what is needed to create an environment that has the right kind of, let's say, resources for the body to open.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of why people are so shut down is because they're in inhospitable environments, both in their physiology, as we've been discussing, but also in their ecology, in their social environment, in their
Right.
social
Right.
lives. And this is really reinforced by culture because people don't know how to deal with the full range of the human experience and they get really uncomfortable when other people start to bring forth parts of themselves that they don't know how to deal with. Or I could say that more clearly, like if somebody is bringing forward a range within yourself that you don't know how to deal with, it usually makes you feel uncomfortable.
Hmm.
Or you could pedestalize the other person and be like, oh my God, they're so amazing and blah, 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 blah. Or it could be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, how
Yeah.
dare you?
Yeah.
Like maybe that last piece is weird, but like making other people wrong is often, it's a projection because
Right.
I don't know how to deal with that part of myself. I make that part of myself wrong. I suppress that. And then when you are embodying that frequency or that quality of self, I don't want to look at it. So I'm going to
Right.
make you wrong because
Right.
it's projected out. I cannot face my own relationship with my inner experience. And this is fascinating to me. And some people say that it's a part of the intelligence of nature, that the energy of projection is like, well, if I can't face it here, I'll just face it in some really weird way over here and maybe it will move something a little bit.
I mean, maybe, but if all we do is dislike it, and the other person, that doesn't help us
Well,
integrate that. But
yeah, it's like there's a way to use projection for healing and
yeah.
transformation, and most people don't know what that is.
Right.
But it's not nothing and it's not rocket science. It's just something that the
Yeah.
people who know about that shit are probably not in your friend group if what I'm saying doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Because there are communities of people who, and it's not like these are a bunch of immature people who are emotionally indulgent and are not successful and healthy. Quite the opposite, right? Like, and there's a ton of that. Like, there's a lot of, I think that the new age movement, let's call it, and this kind of like renaissance of stuff like what we're talking about related to emotions and even sex itself, have put a bad taste in people's mouths. And I think the tradition, like the the history of this probably goes back to the 1960s and the psychedelic renaissance and the free love movement and all that sort of stuff and all these teachers from the East coming to the US and then, everyone taking acid and having orgies or whatever. And then people were like, okay, we had enough of that. Let's get down to business.
Right.
So I think that there's a distorted view in the cultural zeitgeist of these kinds of ideas that were reintroduced into Western culture in a way that was pretty ungrounded and not really connected to the wisdom and kind of holistic view that I'm trying to
Right.
to whisper here
Right.
in some ways, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that a lot of people might recognize what I'm saying, and we could talk a whole lot about the pros and cons of the impact of all of this change that
Right.
has happened over the past 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll pause here. I said a lot of
Okay.
words. Where do you want to take us?
Well, I think for the last segment here, I would love to then talk about how this relates to, I guess, what you call the orgasm reflex, but like what is
Okay.
orgasmic potential? Like what is unclogging the circuitry and opening up our breathing and being able to be in a regulated state and all this? How does that relate to our capacity and experience of orgasm?
Yeah. So if you think about it, just in what you're saying, I immediately feel what we're talking about in my body. And if you imagine a body that is really shut down and constricted and breathing is really like localized to the upper front part of the chest area, that in that kind of shut down, closed, contracted body, if you imagine sexual arousal being primarily kind of focused and located on the genitals, and then stimulation of the genitals is like, of course, what a lot of people are doing when they're sexually engaged, that energy just gets stuck there. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like if you imagine the vessel or like the container or whatever that can hold the juice or the sexual charge. I think that that's a better metaphor to make it more like if you imagine electricity or something like that. The amount of charge that the body can hold when it is not integrated into the whole system, but is just localized right there in the genitals, is really minimal compared
Mm-hmm.
to what our bodies are capable of and what is most desirable and meaningful for people from what I've seen. There's no question about it. Right. So if we imagine an open system, there's this sense of like the vessel is the whole body. The
Yeah.
whole body can hold a tremendous amount of charge. It can hold a tremendous amount of pleasure and sensation and energy, right? And not to mention the orgasmic capacity of the body. We could get into some kind of jargony language and say something like ecstatic conductivity or ecstatic capacity, which ultimately influences consciousness. That
Mm-hmm.
what happens in consciousness is like a psychedelic experience or even like a spiritual or religious experience or a altered state. And often orgasm can be sustained. It's not even like a crotch sneeze that most people associate to this, 2 or 3 second long thing. It's like the body opens, it dilates. There's still waves and undulations of it, but the body dilates into a different state. And I'm using that
Mm.
word dilate very intentionally. And I'm kind of skirting around the edge of the what I could say is like most people have no idea what sex is and what the sexual process can be and what these terms of like what is sexual alchemy and what is this. People have no idea because they're so shut down and their relationship with sex is kind of in this tiny little box. And that's also the way that everybody around you has been. Um,
Yeah,
something
I
that I
mean,
like
right.
to
It's not like anybody's fault, right? I don't want people to feel
know.
guilty or
Absolutely
shamed
not.
or something. It's like this is what we've learned, and
For sure.
yeah,
It's nobody's fault. But also, we could also say the flip side of that is that it is your responsibility if you want to
yeah,
experience something different. And
yes,
if you don't, then like, okay,
that's okay, right,
player's choice, do whatever you want.
right,
But like it's I do think that like this is so worthwhile from what I've seen in terms of like high leverage investment of how to improve your quality of life and to have more meaning and more meaningful experiences and better health and higher energy levels and more, like more harmonious relationships and to feel better in your body and to have more self-esteem and especially for men. And maybe this isn't especially for men, but I see it in men because that's who I mostly work with is that
right,
like men when a man does not feel sexually competent and sexually fulfilled, it impacts his self-esteem and his ego so much.
mm,
And on the flip side, like a man who's, like sexually gratified on a regular basis and knows his power and capacity to bring the woman he loves into profound states of orgasm, feels different in his body. There's like there's a even like an unspeakable sense that other people have in his presence. Like women generally feel more comfortable around men like that. Other men tend to respect them more, even if they don't know why.
yeah,
It's just like, oh, it's like that's a thing. And I think this inability to experience success this is a key word, this inability to experience success and abundance in one's sexual life is so impactful. It's so impactful. Men need to feel competent to feel good. They need to feel capable of being able to be like, oh, this is a thing that matters to me, and I fucking did it. You know, like
Yeah.
I took care of business.
Yeah.
And when men don't even know how to take care of business with this thing that's so fundamental to their creativity and their identity and their embodiment and the way that they want to be in relationship, it's like no wonder that we just feel weird and we have no model of how to change that. So we just kind of rationalize it away. Where it's like, I think most people really have never even interacted with other people that are sexually fulfilled
Yeah. I mean, who
ever.
knows?
Like they never
Yeah.
even met somebody
They
like that.
probably haven't, right? Or those that have know each other, right? Like that's a different kind of sphere or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and it creates the sense of like we don't even know the water that we swim in,
Yeah.
right? Like we don't even know. I love
Yeah.
this. I don't remember where I heard this, but someone was like, one fish goes to the other fish, like, "Hey, the water's warm today," and the other fish goes, "What's water?"
Yeah, right. Exactly. So can we circle back? Because we talked about this the first time too, but I really want to emphasize how this is everyone's capacity. Everyone has access. This is a human thing. You don't have to be some guru or some rare, unique individual.
Yeah, you don't even need to change your lifestyle. Like you don't
Yeah.
need to you don't need to like move to Bali and like change your diet, you know, you'd be vegan or fucking wear a mala or whatever. Like you don't need to do that's no, like this is for regular people. It's not that complicated. It's
Yeah.
not extraordinary. Like there are extraordinary things about it, but like this is very ordinary. It is
Yeah.
not even like, you know, people come in contact with these blocks and resistances and doubts so much where they're like, how could I say this? Like, that's for other people. There's so much that would need to
Right.
change. My wife isn't up to this kind of stuff. I don't know. Like there are people who can like feel energy and all this stuff, and I'm not one of those people. And it's
Right.
like
Right. Right.
I haven't seen that. Like I
Yeah.
don't think that this is we're not even talking about extra sensory perception or like any not at all. This is
Yeah.
so ordinary and fundamental to being a human being. And the
Right.
amount of progress and change that people can experience in a short period of time is across the board.
Yeah.
Like I have not seen it not work.
Yeah. All right. So let's end with where people reach out to you because
Sure.
they'll want to know more. And what do you have available as a starting
Yeah.
point for people?
Yeah. Well, a great starting point is we made an assessment which I think is a good segue from what we were just talking about. The assessment is designed to take people through a step-by-step process, basically, where they get to, it's like a bunch of statements and you get to rate yourself 0 through 10 on the statement. And it lays out what are the building blocks of a great sex life? Like, what is this actually made out of, this thing that we're talking about? If it's not what I might think it is, or even let me just see where I stand with this kind of stuff.
Hmm.
It takes like 10 minutes and it generates unique output for your like whatever inputs that you give it. And this is a great place to start. It's free. You can go to bedroomcompass.com
Okay.
and yeah, just take the thing and it's cool. A lot of people have shared that this helped them to even get oriented to like, what do you mean? Like, what do you even,
Right.
in a way that's very concrete. It's
Yeah.
super simple language and it's just like, okay. So that's there. It's mostly geared towards men, but women have also reported that they found it to be very insightful and interesting, both to better understand their husband and also just as a reflection on where they're at in their own personal journey. So that's one thing. And I think that's really it. I mean, you can just like Google me or type my name in on
Well, you
Instagram
have
or
some sort
whatever.
of, isn't there like a foundational online course that people could do too?
Yeah, there's a bunch of different things that people can sign up for, but in terms of a
Okay.
point of entry, I typically recommend the assessment.
Okay.
Because again, it's 10 minutes and it's free. You can just do
Perfect.
it. If you're interested in what we're talking about, that's a really good place to start.
Okay.
Yeah, we run an 8-week program. You can just do the first half if that's more your speed in terms of investment, or you just want to have a taste and see if you're into this. And the next one starts in, I think, like 4 or 5 weeks. So
Okay.
I don't know when are you going to publish this one?
I
Soonish?
don't know yet. Our first conversation, I mean, as we're talking right now, our first conversation is coming out next Monday. So
Okay.
this one will probably be a little bit, so might miss that next cohort. But if they do the assessment,
Okay.
I assume they would be alerted to
Yeah,
as the
totally.
doors
Yeah. So
open.
there are opportunities for sure.
Okay.
And we can maybe even put it in the show notes from the previous recording so that that cycle's there. And we run it pretty regularly. So if people miss the thing, they're, you're not missing the boat. It's just
Right.
there's another time there. So
Okay.
that's great. And we've put a lot of attention and care and really wanting to have something that as quickly and efficiently as possible gets people real results. It's not just conceptual. It's like, how do you change this and experience something that's more fulfilling? Because again, it seems like pretty much everybody cares about this and pretty much nobody knows what to do. So
Well, one
yeah,
thing that struck me as we've talked about this is like if you invited people in to do deep personal work, they're going to say no thanks generally. Right. No, I'm too busy. So,
especially men.
but better sex, sure. But even that, better sex leads to this profound personal change, right? That goes so much beyond sex. It's interesting that,
Absolutely.
yeah,
And to be clear, you will have the best sex of your life, like
right,
over and over again. Like it for sure. It's like, it's not even like I'm like, oh, let's go over here. It's like, no, this is why you're here. I'm not
yeah,
like that. I'm very serious about this. Like that's what you signed up for. That's what you're going to get. And this is the
right,
only way that I know how to help you.
right. And it's going to impact all these other
100%.
aspects too.
Like
So,
sometimes I feel just deeply touched and inspired by reading the like exit surveys in the program of people sharing like what their wives have experienced, how they relate to their kids being different, and like in no way anything weird, just like the quality of
right,
presence and attention and playfulness and attunement and having more energy and more inspiration for stuff and having a different perspective about what truly matters that I've just read again and again and heard from people that like this has really impacted me. It's really
yeah,
impacted the way that I show up at work, the way that I think about my future. So it's very
cool,
cool to see that it works its way in from the inside.
right. Well, thank you
Awesome.
again for taking all this time.
It's my pleasure, Jessa. Thank you for being such a lovely host. Fun to chat with you.